Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, a Pittsburgh Steelers podcast made by fans like you, for fans like you. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. I am your host, Joe Kuzma, and I am bringing you probably one of the most difficult, depressing, and disappointing shows that I hope it's the worst of the worst for this year. Clearly, this is the worst loss of the Mike Tomlin era, and the Steelers just going down in defeat in a very disappointing total team loss in basically all three phases of the game to the Philadelphia Eagles. Once again, not breaking the streak of losing in Philadelphia. Goes all the way back to the 60s, 34-3, the final total, not even a touchdown from the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday. Very depressing, very disappointing, as we all know. I can't honestly tell you how this show is going to go. I really don't know even how to break this down. There was so much that went wrong. Where do you even start? I mean, the first drive looked promising, and this almost felt like one of these games they had in the past. I want to say it was up in Cleveland where they drove down the field, and then it was a turnover, missed opportunity, and, of course, a blocked field goal, and yada, 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 and then players start to get injured, and it just seems like it's the worst of the worst, and it just dog piles on you and snowballs and snowballs and snowballs until you can't take no more, and you're finally saying, please, I don't want any more, and it's still, after 21 points in the third quarter, they still had to play the fourth quarter. It was a very disgusting game. I don't know what else can possibly be said about it, but we're gonna dig into this game a little bit here today. Yes, I am deflated, and that's to take that from Tom Brady. The Steelers at least didn't get scored on in the fourth quarter. We'll take that as one silver lining in this game. I really wonder, and it's tough. I want to say, yeah, all this got to their head. You know, the early 2-0 start, the big win against the Redskins, the big win against division rival Cincinnati Bengals the previous week. And now let's go to Philadelphia. We have a rookie quarterback. Hey, I told you the last time we faced a rookie quarterback, we didn't do so hot against him as well. A lot of people still want to say Carson Wentz is the real deal. I don't know. I want to really say that Doug Peterson and his coaching staff, he has a good coaching staff. He has Frank Reich there and Jim Schwartz. They all had a very good game plan, and the Steelers had a very lousy game plan. But did being number one in this power rankings crap that they put out, did all this stuff get to their head? Did D'Angelo Williams leading in rushing and Ben leading in passing touchdowns or tied for the lead heading into this weekend? All these different vanity statistics other than W's. Did it get to them? I really wonder, and I wonder how it's coached or coached up or not coached, or just, sometimes things just don't work. I mean, I had somebody online that was really, oh my goodness, some of the people that are yinsing out there. I mean, your team's not going to win every Sunday. This is just a matter of fact. The last time I checked, the teams that played in the Super Bowls and won Super Bowls, there's only one of them that ever went undefeated the entire way, and that was the Miami Dolphins back in, what was that, 72, 74? No, it wasn't 74. Anyway, yeah, if speaking of the 70s, you want to take something. The Steelers didn't even win in Philadelphia back with those Super Bowl era teams, the Chuck Noll teams, the Terry Bradshaws and the Mean Joe Green and Franco and Swan and Stallworth and Lambert and all those names. They didn't win then. And then the last time that they lost in Philadelphia, of course, 2008, the Steelers went to the Super Bowl that year too. So, guys, and gals, I know the gals are listening too. Don't. The sky's not falling. It's really not falling. It's going to be okay. This is a quality football team, but the depth and just the shell shock of some of the stuff that went on in this game, I do think they lost an opportunity here. Now the Baltimore Ravens, who have played some miserable opponents, including the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cleveland Browns, are 3-0, and everybody's going to be talking them up as though they were something awesome. They had a kicker that made 4 field goals in this game, including a game winner. let me tell you, it's still going to be a battle when that game comes about, but they don't have anybody that's really lighting up the charts statistically there. I mean, it's just they played the Jaguars. I think it's more or less what you could take from that game. That was a 19-17 final, by the way. And just to elaborate on some of the statistics there, Joe Flacco, 29 of 40 for 214, no touchdowns and 2 picks. So I'm going to pick on them for a minute. Just their numbers don't look a whole lot much better than the Steelers here. They had Terrence West rushing 10 times for 45 yards. Their lead receiver was Steve Smith, 8 receptions, 87 yards. None of these guys, nobody scores. There's no Flacco ran in for a rushing TD, and then the rest was all what's his name, Justin Tucker, who kicks 4 field goals in this game and an extra point or whatever, too. I mean, this game was just as ugly as anything, and the Ravens are going to get the credit for being in the lead of the AFC North right now. That's just the way the schedule shakes out, because they're going to have to play some tougher opponents going forward, too. Jacksonville is one of those teams on the schedule that the Steelers aren't going to face. So it's just the way some of that shakes out with the way your previous year went. So looking around the league, the Cleveland Browns blow it in overtime against the Miami Dolphins in a game where neither one of those teams wanted to win. It was also as equally ugly. And then you look at the Denver Broncos, who just laid the smackdown on the Cincinnati Bengals 29-17. So looking around the league, the Bengals lose to an AFC opponent, and the Browns lose to an AFC opponent. But one silver lining is that even though this is the worst loss of the Mike Tomlin era and one of the worst losses that the Pittsburgh Steelers have seen in a very, very long time, it was to an NFC opponent. Therefore, it's when you get down into this playoff breakdown and tiebreakers and whatnot, it's going to be okay. So if you're going to lose a game, this is a game that you can lose, that you can let go. And I want to say, I'm trying to look for this number right here. The Steelers' worst loss since 1989. That was the exact statistic. So that even goes back beyond the Bill Cowher years, back to 89. So just really, really rough day at the office. There were a few okay performances we could probably pick out of this as far as the silver linings, but the Steelers losing 34-3 once again. The offense tries to get started right out the gate. Marcus Wheaton has a ball bounce off of the double ones on the front of his jersey, right in the back corner of the end zone. He is definitely a little rusty, had 3 drops in that game that were all critical in my opinion, especially that touchdown. And then, of course, the blocked field goal right after that, to which I have to say there were people just jumping all over Twitter with the Fire Haley crap already. Come on, please. Really, Todd Haley is out there wearing a number 11 jersey and dropping the football. Yes, there's the silence. Is he out there not making the block that he's supposed to make? And does he have anything to do with special teams, with the field goal getting blocked or anything like that? No, he has absolutely nothing to do with that. Do we have the same criticism of maybe Mike Munchak for how the offensive line played on Sunday? Or maybe I already said special teams, Danny Smith or Carnell Lake with the secondary, or let's kick it up a notch to Keith Butler with the whole defense. This defense, they failed to get a sack in yet another game. This is tough. This is really tough. I don't want to say the sky is falling, and I don't think anybody was ready to pronounce the sky is falling with the Steelers not getting a sack, but now through 3 games is a little bit of a concern. I thought originally it was part of the game plan maybe, and they had gotten close, but I don't know that they necessarily Carson Wentz wasn't feeling the heat at all. You got maybe a play where Shaquille got on him. The penalties in this game really bothered me. The calls and non-calls. It seemed like a few of them were, I really don't want to go there. I don't want to be like, well, so-and-so was held and there wasn't a flag for that because, it goes both ways. And we all know how the Bengals were crying about the Boyd fumble, non-fumble the week before, and now they're crying about it again this week. I guess there was something similar to that as well. Now, keep in mind, I'm making a lot of comments about this game, following the game basically without seeing any without being able to review any film. So just based on my observations here, this is just what I want to tell you. And I just felt like the one with Tuitt and hitting the quarterback was just his hands up and he's trying to smack at the ball. And I think some of that stuff is just cheap and just takes away from football. And if by letter of the law it is a penalty, it is a penalty. It just makes more of the not fun league thing come out. And some of the pass interference calls, one way or the other, just seemed a little ticky-tack in my opinion. I'm very surprised too that the Antonio Brown catch actually held up. It almost seemed like the whole world was against Pittsburgh yesterday, including themselves, because the penalties in this game, there was it just wasn't very clean football. It was a very ugly game. And going down the statistics here, the Eagles had 25 first downs. Actually, through the first half, 13-3, it wasn't terrible. It was really that drive where they didn't get the points off the Wheaton drop and the blocked field goal that separated this game, and then the Eagles just kicked down the door. 25-15 first downs. They had 10 of the Eagles, very balanced, 10 first downs running the ball, 11 by passing, and then 4 of them by penalties. And the penalties were just absolutely killer. The Eagles were still only 4 for 10 on third down, 40% efficiency, and they were 3 of 5 in the red zone, however, and 2 of 2 with goal to go. So the Steelers bend but don't break. They broke a little bit, and someone was really ragging on Twitter. I told you those bend but don't break defenses eventually break. Well, when everybody's their legs are breaking or whatever the heck is happening out there, you lose 3 of your linebackers starting. You're playing a 3-4, and you have 4 linebackers on the field, and 3 of them are off the field in the first series or 2, and you're trying to patch this thing together. That's a very tall order, and I thought they were still pretty effective. Jarvis comes off the field at one point. You got Ryan Shazier get banged up, and then of course Lawrence Timmons leaves the game, sent to the hospital for a shin. The Steelers end up giving up a total net of 426 yards. They get 251 themselves, a little bit in the garbage time there before Ben throws the pick at the end of the game. Only 29 yards rushing for the Steelers. They gave up 125 in this game. They gave up 301 passing. And, of course, Ben was sacked 4 times for 35 yards. That's more than he's been sacked the entire year. Just a very, very bad game all the way around. I mean, the only silver lining, I think, is if you want to take Jordan Berry, who had a long of 63-yard punt, a 55-yard per punt average. One of those inside the 20. I think another one of those was a touchback that rolled in. So they just, like I told you, this is so tough for me to go through this and just look at these numbers. You got D'Angelo Williams rushing 8 times for 21 yards. He adds another 4 catches for 23 yards. Sammy Coates, not too bad for where he was used. 3 catches, 50 yards. Eli Rogers targeted 5 times, but only caught 2 of those for 32, and he left the game with a toe injury as well. So very concerned about a lot of these injuries. The offensive line, you had Ramon Foster leave the game for B.J. Finney. David DeCastro, Alejandro Villanueva had some very bad games. They had some penalties attributed to them. Also giving up some of the pressure and the sack. I want to say that the one fumble was David DeCastro just getting pushed all the way back by Fletcher Cox. Not the best game by your Pro Bowl guard, and these things happen. Your star players aren't always that sharp. I didn't think Ben was necessarily off. I didn't think he was necessarily sharp either. Of course, Marcus Wheaton, I said, had to get back into football shape. Jesse James, not good blocking today. Some of the stuff that was going on with the Outlaw here, they tried to set up one of those screen passes, and he completely doesn't get a helmet on a helmet anywhere. It's just one of those things. And Jesse James still has to work on this. Particularly, he's been the one that's been singled out. But I saw that he got pulled from the field a few times, whereas he was playing every single snap in the previous 2 games. He played all of them, 100% participation. Not the case today for the Outlaw. You gotta do. He's going to learn. It's a process. He's a second-year player, okay? And that's what we're dealing with. We got these contributions prior from a lot of players that you would never thought you would get any type of contribution by. So actually the playing time, the snap counts aren't up yet. So you're going to have to look for that in a few days here on steelcityunderground.com. We'll try and break those down. The one player who did come to play, the one star who definitely showed up, who didn't have the biggest game the week before, was Antonio Brown. Targeted a whopping 18 times. He still caught the ball a dozen times for $140, only a long of 20. Maybe not the biggest impact, but at least AB was there for us. And as far as tackles go, I mean, it was basically you're looking at Sean Davis and William Gay making a ton of tackles as everything from the front seven. I mean, everything just went to the second level and back into the defensive secondary in this game. They had trouble stopping the run. They had trouble stopping the pass, the little dump-offs, the screens. Just very ugly all the way around for the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday. So covered AB, covered Jesse James, talked about the offensive line. You had one injury, and then you just had your main cogs in that line, like David DeCastro not getting down to it. The defense themselves, I thought the defense was okay at first, and then the defense just kind of, it's another one of those things where they got deflated. The players were dropping like flies and getting hurt, and I may have even missed a name or two off what's going to be on this injury report and what I'm waiting to see and hear, and hope that there isn't anything that's too majorly serious, because I felt Eli Rogers was coming along very well on the offensive side of the ball. Of course, you don't want to lose a player like Lawrence Timmons. You don't want to lose Jarvis Jones. I mean, you're already down Bud Dupree when it comes to this defense. And I mean, anything, you want to stay as healthy as possible. And there's just a lot of injuries in this game. And I had tweeted out, Terry Fletcher was also covering a lot of the live tweets. So if you disagreed with something, it wasn't necessarily Joe behind the steering wheel there. Sorry, Terry, I'm going to throw you under the bus there, but we tried. What can I say? There isn't a whole lot you could say that's really positive about this game. So the Steelers, once again, they don't end the streak in Philadelphia. They end up losing to an NFC team. So that's one thing that can be said that's positive in a very, very depressing game with a very difficult time to find a silver lining as they give up some, Smallwood. Who is Smallwood? Wendell Smallwood? I think that was his first name. 79 yards and a touchdown. You had Barner running for 42 on 8 carries for a touchdown. Carson Wentz was over 300. First time in his career, 301, 31 attempts. That's about what he was looking at before, with 34 and 37 when they had played the Browns and then the Bears. 2 touchdowns in this game. Darren Sproles really breaking it open, though. The 6 receptions, the long 73-yarder, 128 yards and a TD. They're going to have to tighten this up, and I'm not sure that they were necessarily prepared for it. I don't think we really saw a lot from Sproles prior to that. I mean, they didn't really run Ryan Matthews much as they had in some of the prior games, because I got to see some of the Eagles games before this. They drew up a game plan to win, and they attacked the weaknesses in the Steelers' defense, and hopefully when a team finds those weaknesses and exposes them, that will help the Steelers tighten up those loose ends and just make sure that this does not happen again in the future. What else is there to say? You got to look ahead, and the Steelers now will have 2 straight games at home. They've got a Sunday night contest coming up against the Kansas City Chiefs in prime time. Then they bring the New York Jets into town, where Ryan Fitzpatrick threw 5 picks over the weekend, the most he's thrown ever in his career, and he has been a pick machine so far, kind of turning into the Kirk Cousins there of the AFC East instead of the NFC East. So looking ahead to that, the Steelers, at least they get to stay at Heinz Field, and they get to play still 2 quality opponents here in the AFC, but they could rack up 2 more conference wins that'll help towards any type of tiebreakers as you move on into the season. And of course, Le'Veon Bell returning. Huge, that extra game removed from his suspension. He will be back for the primetime game. Going to have to see when he is activated here shortly who the Steelers are dropping off of the active roster. My guess might be somebody like Darrell Richardson. It's going to be Richardson or Toussaint is pretty much my guess. That's who's going to be coming off of this roster, unless they pull a linebacker like Steven Johnson, who originally did not make the 53-man cut. Then when they added Bud Dupree to injured reserve, They re-signed Steven Johnson to take Bud's place. So it's got to be somebody that's lower in the pecking order here in order to make room for Bell. That's going to be interesting to see as we move forward. So, as I said, the Ravens are now leading this Division 3-0. It's disappointing to say, but maybe not against the most quality opponents. Looks like the Eagles are at least playing for real. They sure as heck took advantage of home field, and the Pittsburgh Steelers may be too high on their horse going into Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday. Ladies and gentlemen, a very depressing, very difficult show to run, but I'm not ready to fire Tomlin, Haley, Mike Munchak, the offensive line coach, Keith Butler, our defensive coordinator, any of these guys. Still, this team, I like to be positive, and I don't like to say bad things about my team, so I'm not going to, but criticism where criticism's due. They just did not play a very good game, and I'm sure if you talk to any of the men that were playing in the game on Sunday, they would admit to you the same. And unfortunately, they're going to have to watch this game film and relive a lot of this. And maybe it'll put a chip on their shoulder and get them ready for next Sunday night's matchup against the Chiefs. Once again, thank you for listening. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to call the Steel City Underground Hotline. That is 203-900-4SCU. I don't really pick this thing up. This is a recording kind of voicemail type thing. So you get to leave your opinion. You get to leave your question. I play opinions too. So if you just want to make a comment, I'll answer it. I'll play it on the show. Just refrain from the profanity and the fire. If you say fire Todd Haley, I won't play it. That's not going to happen. So yeah, you didn't run the football enough. There wasn't enough of a balanced attack. But like I said, these type of things happen. And it's just, I'd rather it happen in the way it did, to whom it did, when it did, so now it can be fixed going forward into the future. Until next time, be safe, be good, and I will catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.